This is Buckeye legend Mike Tomczak, and you're listening to OVE Podcast. It's Ohio versus everyone. Subscribe, like, listen, and follow, and don't forget your comments. Here's the show, and remember to always wash your BALLS.
Thank you, Mike Tomczak. Mike Tomczak, by the way, has never illegally hacked into a system to film any women underage, overage, or not. I guarantee you that.
Well,
in fact, no one in this audience probably has done that. This is the OVE Podcast, by the way. I'm the Torg, QFM 96 mornings. Sam Grooms, hurt at work or in an accident. Let attorney Robert Schuerger go to war for you at warforyou.com. On this Friday, Sam, is not a good day to be a Michigan fan.
Well, we can say that. We can't say that he's never done it. We can say that he has not been caught.
Well, I'm going to say he hasn't done it for a fact.
Just trying to give us the plausible deniability.
No, I'm going to say Mike Tomczak has never done it.
Oh man, I mean, isn't it hilarious that a Michigan fan all along the way has denied, and then once they realized, okay, they probably did it, then they said it didn't give a competitive advantage. Then it proves it does. Like every step of the way, they've come up with some excuse, some coping mechanism that immediately gets shot down. How much more needs to happen for Michigan fan to realize they're cooked? And I think we can finally say there's more than a 50-50 chance that they're getting stripped of that title.
Yeah, I think it's more and more each day when you look at the evidence of what's going on. In today's poll question of outside being a pedophile creep, do you believe Matt Weiss watched other teams' practice footage or used any other unfair advantage? I know the answer of that. It's funny, Sam, two things can be true, because if you go back a year, everybody obviously knew Matt Weiss was under investigation. He didn't show up for the hearing at Michigan. We knew something was going on. And if you go back on this show and you said that, well, I heard it was pedophile crap, which is right, because if he filmed any woman who was a 17-year-old college student, that's pedophile crap, right? You could say, oh, it was college women. No, it was pedophile crap, especially if they were 17-year-olds, right? So you have creepy ass, borderline Jerry Sandusky, creepy crap going on. And I mentioned to you, well, that's not what I heard. I heard it was watching practice, getting inside intel. And guess what? We argued about it and we were both right. Turns out we were both right. Now, you're not going to read in that indictment anything about stealing practice footage because the feds don't care about that. But that will be coming soon. Let it simmer a little bit. And I'll throw up specific plays for you if you don't believe me. But yeah, it was an ugly day. You're right, Sam. They're in denial. Now they're doing I had my buddy Chuck call me last night, and his whole thing was, all right, well, he took videos and he did his ranking system and he was creepy, but he still had integrity when it came to his job. I go, integrity? You don't think a pedophile creep, even if he did use that the majority of the time to look up women with his ranking system and download naked shots and videos, you don't think he, having that access, not once looked up a player's injury report, looked at a practice, watched video that he wasn't supposed to, get communication between a player and a coach? If you don't think he did that at some point in his 2 years at Michigan, you are in denial. You probably believe Scott Peterson's innocent.
I would say so. I do want to correct you real quickly, or at least in my opinion in this regard. I think largely the feds are concerned with the actual crime of hacking computers. If you're in
But
Michigan,
they detailed of what he did. If you
let me get there. What I'm saying is the feds care, and it's a federal offense when you're in Michigan and you're hacking computers outside state lines, so the Fed get involved. There's a little civics lessons for you. But I think they're more concerned about the crime, but when you start injecting the fact that you have potentially underage co-eds pictures and videos being exchanged and medical information, like the feds don't give a shit if they stole Ohio State or Purdue practice footage. They do care if underage girls' information and videos and pictures were being peddled, and you were hacking into medical information of players and or other students. So yeah, man, I think he's cooked. You had 24 counts Basically, he was indicted upon in a federal grand jury. I think this could be, we've talked about this earlier, like when does the whole, the accusation or the question be raised by the NCAA about the LLC being between Connor Stallions and who was the running back at the time? But I think
Blake
this
Corum?
is Pandora's box. Blake Corum, thank you. I think this is Pandora's box into so much other potential infractions, one of which we've talked about the multiple components that we kind of heard about, and you mentioned here a minute ago about, whether they were stealing game tape or there was, kind of some pedo shit going on. Turns out, again, we were both right. I think this is just Pandora's box into something potentially bigger. I would not be the least bit surprised if some kind of illegal or illicit gambling ring at the Michigan football team and or in the athletic department was being taken place, and that would just be another heap of shit on this pile of shit that Michigan is going to have to be dealing with.
Someone on social media accused me of being a liar, and I said, well, what am I lying about? Give me specific examples. Do you know for a fact he didn't do any of these things when it involved the sport? You're kind of right in something is you can't rule anything out, right? I don't think you can rule anything out with this program. It is dirty. It's the dirtiest program we've seen. Dirtier than SMU, dirty on multiple levels now, right? I can't rule out now. I would think, Sam, that no, they wouldn't use it for gambling, but I don't know. I don't know where this leads. I didn't know. I was told specific plays, and we're going to get into what I was told. You were told specific things. This story's not new. What he's getting indicted for is new because we're like, okay, here's the truth. We've been waiting for the truth. He hasn't been cooperative, and now we know to what extent he was doing it. It's like, wowzer, 150,000 athletes. This was going on when he was at Baltimore. Hey, thanks, Brother John, for recommending this offensive coach on my staff. John got rid of the problem. Now, listen, this is a black eye for the Baltimore Ravens, probably larger than it is for the University of Michigan, but he did get busted at the University of Michigan, and it's a big problem for Michigan because of the past priors that they've had. But don't think for a second that the NFL's not going to look into the Baltimore Ravens and see what they knew. Were you trying to pawn this guy off on your brother, John? Did you know what was going on? The NFL is going to investigate this. So we're in Columbus, Ohio. So our focus is on our rival, Michigan. That's our focus. But let's not forget this creepo pedophile was doing this crap for a lot longer in Baltimore. The NFL will investigate that. But, it continued. And boy, from the recommendation of his brother, hey, bring this guy on. Thanks, bro.
Well, think about the mentality of Michigan fan, and let's take this a step further, which
they're delusional.
I don't think they fully comprehend how effed and just up shit's creek without a paddle they are. One of their arguments all along the way is, well, they don't have any evidence on us. None of these guys actively participated in the investigation. Can I maybe make a suggestion that if the feds, the Department of Justice, has enough evidence to indict this particular individual for these particular counts or crimes, that they're not going to share the evidence in some capacity with the NCAA investigation?
Yeah,
you're so screwed. And the writing has been on the wall the entire time. You just refuse to believe it.
Even if the NCAA had this information, they're not going to move forward until the feds are done with their investigation. And I would even take it a step further, Sam. I don't think the NCAA is going to do any investigation until he is prosecuted, right? Till there is a final verdict. I think I know that there is proof that Matt Weiss hacked in and watched practice. We've talked about the 3 plays that Ryan Day put in, new formations. The Cade Stover had it wrong when he talked about Connor Stallions, and he gave that specific tight end play where the defensive end, I think it was a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 play, where Cade Stover, the defensive end, dropped back, and they never showed the formation all year. And Cade Stover thought it was a Connor Stallions thing. It wasn't a Connor Stallions thing. It was a Matt Weiss looking at practice, what they were working on in practice, and knew the formation that Ohio State didn't use all year. There's no way Connor Stalions could have knew that because he didn't hack in. Now, the assumption was somehow Connor Stalions got the practice footage. He didn't. It was Matt Weiss who saw the practice footage. There were 3 plays during that 2022 game where Ryan Day turned to everyone and said, how the F did they know we are running that? A formation that was defensed perfectly by Michigan because they knew when Ohio State was in that formation.
It was, if I remember correctly.
I don't think the NCAA, Sam, is even going to start doing anything with this until Matt Weiss is guilty.
At least with him, right?
Yes.
I still think that the NCAA has enough information to absolutely bury this football program.
Well, I think it's 2 separate things. I think it's going to be
you're right. I completely agree.
Stallions, then Matt Weiss, then.
Oh yeah, I get. They're dealing with this as multiple situations, and again, we've got the computer hacking, the federal crimes of Matt Weiss. We've got the illegal scouting and sign stealing for the football program and Connor Stalions. We've got potentially every single coach, including their current coach as part of their roster, lying to the NCAA, deleting information, deleting evidence when told not to. They're so cooked. And wouldn't it also be hilarious that all along this way, this cult figure that Michigan fan wants to put on an absolute pedestal as being this absolute genius in Connor Stalions is proven to actually be just a moron and was essentially using all of this information for Matt Weiss to basically make him look smarter than he actually was?
Yeah, you got to wonder, too, if Connor Stalions and Matt Weiss were in cahoots. Common sense would tell me no, from the standpoint of Matt Weiss probably didn't want anyone to know what he was up to, this illegal, right? I think it's 2 separate things. I think Connor Stalions was doing his sign stealing thing, and then Matt Weiss knew practice on a different level. I don't think Matt Weiss probably had the time to get in depth as Connor Stalions did, right? I think Matt Weiss watched practice.
But Matt Weiss. But think about like the specific example you just gave. Matt Weiss was the offensive coordinator. He doesn't coordinate the defense, but the defense knew specifically that one play, the one play all game where they were essentially going to throw like a tight end screen that Michigan's defensive end dropped to cover the screen. That information doesn't get from the offensive coordinator to the defensive coordinator without some form of conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it was filtered through Connor Stalions to the then defensive coordinator, or if all the coaches were talking about this all along the way, I would imagine Matt Weiss was not talking about the fact that he was diddling himself to co-ed's videos.
Or how did he get it though? I don't think he said, "Well, I've been hacking into Ohio State."
Right. I'm sure he wasn't given that, but I'm saying he was probably saying, "Hey, look, if they do this, this is what's going to happen. We need to play this particular style defense to defend it." Like, that doesn't happen from an offensive coordinator to the defensive staff without them talking in some capacity.
Yeah, he probably said, "Hey, I got a scoop. Ohio State's working on this play this week. If they do jumbo set, tight end, running back to the, whatever, pro set, whatever it is, they are going to run this play."
Well,
and Matt Weiss simply says, "Hey, I know for a fact that in practice, Ohio State is going to run this play on a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 at some point during the game."
Well, we're obviously talking about knowing plays and all of that, but with this Matt Weiss situation, I think this opens up another competitive advantage that we're not talking about enough. Mm-hmm. Ryan Day and his coaching staff do everything they can to protect injuries or, how potentially lame a player is on their roster. If you know not only what is hurting on the opposition's players, but how severe it is, you know how to attack them, and that gives you another competitive advantage that you shouldn't have. So I think that's something too that we need to stress a little bit to see, like how much of an advantage Michigan was getting from all this illegal crap they were doing.
Yeah, someone just put in the chat though that the indictment doesn't have anything to say anything about stealing. I don't think it would. I don't think the indictment here is what Matt Weiss did with the co-eds and accessing information. The FBI does not care if Matt Weiss is going to detail everything he looks. The feds are going to look at this and go, all right, he did this. This is a charge. He did this. This is a charge. He did this. This is a charge. I want to point out something. There was a member of the media who paid a walk-on Ohio State player for his username and password so he could watch plays. Okay, this is a true story. I'm not going to reveal who. Jake Stoneburner wants to kick this guy's ass, and several other Buckeyes don't like him. But a member of the media paid a walk-on, I think it was 2 years ago, and he had access. And then something happened with message boards where Ohio State found out, hey, we only were running these plays in practice. How does the Oregon message board find this out, or whatever it was, right? So then they traced it, and they went in and logged in under every player to make sure every player was the player that matched up with their username and password. And lo and behold, when they got to this walk-on player, there in their screen was a media member. This media member is not allowed to attend. I don't know if he's banned from the Woody.
Are we talking about who I think we're talking about?
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
I know him, got friends with the guy. But he did this. This is factual. So he never got arrested for this. And that's true. So what I'm telling you is 100% true. You know that you don't even got to type it to me, Sam. We know.
I'll say check that. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody knows it. I mean, people watching this podcast or listening know who it is. I think they do.
We have to separate the fact that.
But did he get arrested for that? No, he hacked into this guy. So it might not necessarily be worthy of FBI charges or to be in an indictment and still be true. I see these Michigan fans on the chat. They're dim-witted idiots. Oh, well, him watching practice was not in there. I guarantee you, the majority of stuff that Matt Weiss did, hacking, is not in that indictment. They put in the indictment things they are going to get a guilty verdict in and get 5 years in prison for each verdict. I guarantee you in an indictment, it's not going to be watched Ohio State practice. It's not going to be an
there's not a federal law prohibiting you from Connor Stallions illegally scouting the opposition. That's not even a state law. That's an NCAA bylaw. Let's separate the entities here, right? And we're also let's also take into account the severity of what Matt Weiss is being accused of or has been indicted upon by a federal grand jury. Like, as much as I hate Connor Stallions and realize the illegality and the competitive advantage that program received by doing what he did, I don't think he should be thrown in federal prison for it. I think what Matt Weiss has done or what he is accused of, if found guilty by his peers or a judge, should be thrown in federal prison because he committed crimes against federal law. Like, if we're going to look at severity here, what Matt Weiss has been indicted upon is far more severe than what the rest of the football program to this point in Connor Stallions is being accused of.
Matt Weiss should be in a cell and never get out of that cell. I don't know why Michigan fans here are getting so upset from the standpoint of, and Penn State fans did it with Sandusky. You didn't do this, Michigan fans. You didn't do this. Your hero, Jim Harbaugh, let you down for lack of control. What's the exact term of that?
Institutional control.
Institutional control. There's a whole lot of things that's going to happen from this that's not going to happen right now. And that's probably not going to happen a year from now. But whoever the governing body of college sports is, whether they have a committee, whether it's the NCAA, regardless of who it is, if you don't think, all right, at the very least, let's kind of negotiate here, and I'll go to dim-witted Michigan level here. Do you really think that the NCAA or a governing body in college sports is not going to look into this? A coach, federal indictment of 24 counts of identity theft, computer hacking into 150,000 students, okay? Do you not think, you stupid, dim-witted moron, that the NCAA or a governing party is not going to say, what did he look at of that 150,000 students? Was it just women or was it more? If you don't think that someone's going to investigate that on the college level, you are an effing idiot. Turn this off and never watch again because you're too stupid. I guess, you know what? SpongeBob is on Nickelodeon. No, actually, SpongeBob is too
highbrow
for you. Watch Caillou. Watch the Big Red Dog or Barney. If you don't think the NCAA is going to look into this, at the very least, you should be watching Barney right now wearing a purple dinosaur suit, sucking on a frozen popsicle with the other finger up your nose because you have the intelligence of a 5-year-old. If you don't think that the NCAA is going to look at this and go, I wonder how far this went. And you could read the story and it says primarily used for downloading and looking at women, primarily. Okay, what was the other 10%? What was the other 10%? I'm not saying he watched every practice, but I do know there's a few schools in the Big Ten who raised concern that stuff they were doing in practice, only known in practice, and Michigan knew what they were running in practice. That's what I am saying. So if you think that's out of the realm of possibility, you are an idiot. A dim-witted idiot.
Yeah, I mean, this is just going to add more ammunition to the backpack of the NCAA, whether it's immediately or down the road after this, the court case or the investigation is completed against Matt Weiss. Like the NCAA is going to somehow. Who cares? That guy. They're going to get the information in some capacity that the evidence that they have gotten, and they're going to see what of this is going to stick to our investigation and what we are accusing the Michigan football program et al. Of. Whether or not this actually aids in the Connor Stallions investigation side of it, or if it's just more ammunition for the NCAA to absolutely harpoon Michigan and their entire athletic department too. For what they're being accused of. This is just more ammo.
Well, let's take I got a question for you on that then.
Sure.
Let's take a 60-second break. We'll answer the poll question. Outside of being a pedophile creep, do you believe Matt Weiss watched other teams' practice footage or used an other unfair advantage, right? Because I think you're onto something there about the injury reports. Are you telling me, specifically in the story, it says he had 150,000 student access to injury reports. Even if he looked at an injury report, let's say any player on any team they were playing he looked at, that's an unfair advantage and he's breaking the rules, right? He's hacking into someone's, even at the very least, if he said, oh, someone's hurt this week from Indiana and we play them. Let me look through their emails, their iCloud. He was looking at, had access to all that. Even if they find out he looked at iCloud to see if a player is hurt, that's a level 1. That's a level, even if he looked at one player. Are you telling me, Michigan fan, you don't think he looked at one player to see if that player was out or not after he got done boxing his clown to a gymnast at LSU? You don't think he put it down in between?
Hey, hang on. Let's not shame, giving yourself a little tug to a gymnast from LSU. Okay.
Well, but you're not doing it illegal. You're not looking up at her nudes to her boyfriend.
Hey, let him live.
Yeah. So you don't think that he looked at an injury report or check someone's? Come on.
I've got a question for you and for the chat.
Okay.
Would you rather have Libby Dunn as your girlfriend or the right arm of Paul Skeens?
Right arm of Paul Skeens.
Absolutely.
I can get a better woman than
Libby. But let's also not underscore Libby Dunn either.
Yeah, I know, but still. Quick break. I got a question for you. We're back in 60 seconds, OVE podcast.
We go to war for you.
At Schuerger Trial Attorneys, we don't back down. Accident? Call us today at 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com for a free consultation. Know your rights because results matter.
That's 877-WAR-FOR-YOU. 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com.
War for you, warforyou.com.
Denrob Management has over 40 years experience in all aspects of payroll, processing checks, tax filing, W-2 and 1099 preparation. First-time customers get 50% off their first 3 months processing fees. Give them a call now, 614-297-1158 or denrobmanagement.com. Podcast, the Torque, QFM 96, Sam Grooms, Ohio versus everyone. Remember, warforyou.com, Denrob Management. Help out our sponsors. Today's poll question, outside of being a petty creep, do you believe Matt Weiss or Weiss watched other teams' practice footage or used any unfair advantage? And everybody on Facebook, 100% said yes.
Based upon everything we've seen to this point, what could we use to say that he didn't? Yeah. Like everything points and suggests that he and probably other coaches a part of the football program at Michigan were doing something as such. or were doing as such, why would we have any reason to believe that he wasn't trying to get some form of advantage over opponents?
Yeah, it's ridiculous to think, especially in the indictment, the front page of the indictment, he had injury records. Listen, maybe what Ryan Day and some of the other coaches thought, well, Michigan knew that play. Maybe it would, let's say, a 1% chance that they were just lucky as hell. And, because on a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1, who's going to drop the defensive end? You're either going to contain the outside rush or you're going to rush the passer. But let's say it's that 1 in a bazillion thing where they actually tried to guess the play and they guessed right. Okay. At the very least, he looked at, because I'm saying this, I don't think it's likely that he didn't watch practice, but let's say they just, in all these, dozen of plays where these coaches sent it to the Big Ten and said, wow, we only worked at this in practice. And because the guy I was talking to last night, Sam, was the same guy who told me a year ago that this was going on, that Ryan Day noticed in that 2022 game, there were 3 particular plays where Ryan Day was WTF, like the specific formations we never ran all year. How did this happen? And this person told me it was Matt Weiss. It had to be associated with that. It had to be someone filming practice. And you put 2 and 2 together after he got busted, and you knew it was for cyber crimes that he was. And the theory is that he got the practice. The theory was that the third party gave him access by username and password. It turns out he was just really good at cyber hacking, and this wasn't from a third party source. But all these teams, Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana, whoever it is, got together and said, outside of the sign stealing stuff, there was stuff we worked out. And so Ryan Day and the other teams, and someone will ask Ryan Day, maybe Ryan Day talks about it, maybe Ryan Day's silent about it, right? Maybe he just doesn't want to no comment. Maybe Ryan Day doesn't care because he won a natty, right? Maybe he doesn't. But what they did is they took the plays, matched up the play, and then sent it to the Big Ten. The Big Ten's going to look at, guys, you can match this up. Here's the play. We never used it all year. Here's what Michigan ran. They ran the perfect defense for this play. Put 2 and 2. Then the NCAA can go. I don't know what they probably have their own cyber guy.
Well, and I know Barton did this multiple times over there on Buckeye Scoop, where he pulled down plays where I think, was it 13 personnel or 31 personnel where there's 3 tight ends, where Ohio State had never, it was like 2 yards to gain. They were in the red zone, never thrown out of this particular formation to that point, but just somehow, some way, Michigan was in a cover 2 defense to defend the pass that they had never shown in any kind of public practice or in a game, that they were just in the perfect defense to defend against. Things start smelling at that point. You remember the mid-game or the halftime interview with Schiano at Rutgers saying there was some weird stuff going on. You remember the post-game interview with Franklin over at Penn State saying we're going to control the things that we can control and then try to deal with everything else, alluding to the I guess the inner workings or the inner circle knowledge that Michigan was somehow cheating and kind of in their huddle, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is all just adding up, in addition to the fact, if you look at the record of Harbaugh in Michigan prior to 2021, if you look at the Michigan record against the spread prior to the 2021 season, and then going forward from 2021 to current, it all lines up to saying that something nefarious was going on. And I guess the only question at this point we need to ask, and maybe Michigan fan needs to look in the mirror and ask themselves, is how deep did this really go? And then what did they do with the information there? Because if you think a federal indictment against one man that was a part of your coaching staff now is bad, wait until it potentially comes out that they were using this information to either rig games or gamble, and then you're going to see shit really pop off.
Yeah, it's just, if you're a Michigan football fan and you're still in denial about this, listen, I know it hurts, right? And I know there's people online who said, well, if you're our rival, you should not, throw shade at us because this is a pedophile looking and this goes beyond the rivalry. If that's your opinion, that's fine. But let's be honest here. if the shoe was on the other foot, you'd be all over Ohio State. You acted smug. You've acted arrogant. You've acted like pompous asses, Rich Eisen, Dave Portnoy. You've acted like listen, 2023, 2024, you beat Ohio State fair and square. For the last 6 games of the 2023 season, including the playoffs, you were the best team in college football. Doesn't mean that you didn't cheat the first 6 games of the season, and it doesn't mean you didn't cheat a whole hell of a lot of times in the 2 previous seasons because of Connor Stallions. So if you're trying, this program is dirty from top to bottom. You had Connor Stallions. You had Matt Weiss. You had, didn't they fire Chris Partridge at some point middle of the season because he didn't want to cooperate?
Yep. Yeah, they had guys basically not showing up to the interviews. Not to mention some of the driving infractions that some of the coaches have had. By the way, did you see Georgia picked up another one? Another one of their players got a
Teslas, guys.
God bless.
Come on, get autonomous driving here, guys.
Death, taxes, and
only
Georgia football players getting busted for driving infractions.
It's $100 a month. You guys can afford it. But it just, I don't know why the Michigan fan just doesn't say, you know what? I'm embarrassed.
Well,
I'm embarrassed with my team. And it's not you. You didn't do this, Michigan fans. But you know what you did do? You acted smug and arrogant when everybody knew you were cooked.
You sold your soul to the devil to get the natty. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not saying what I'm about to say solely because I am an Ohio State fan. I like to think I'm relatively objective about that. But Ohio State fans, the mass majority of fans would be appalled and embarrassed if the Ohio State football program did what Michigan is being accused of doing. They would be absolutely embarrassed. Ohio State fan was embarrassed back the Tattoo 8 or Tattoo 5, whatever they were. Ohio State fans were embarrassed about that, and look how far the game has come and how much of a nothing burger that ended up being in the long run.
Did the media protect that team?
What? Did
the media suppress information during Tatgate?
No, they went out of their way to seek it out.
Exactly, because I was the one who broke it. So in the Michigan scandal, you got guys like Isaiah Hope said, well, I knew this information. I didn't want to break it. The Michigan media is cowards outside of John Jansen. That's the only guy who's embarrassed as his program. Well, John Jansen's a Michigan guy, by the way, and he says, every time I hear my program's name, it makes me sick.
Well, wasn't it Sam Webb was it Sam Webb or Isaiah Hull that was basically saying, I knew the information about the coach that was on Michigan staff that got picked up or was currently soliciting underage girls, and he said he withheld that information because it would be detrimental to the program.
Yeah, and his job. Didn't he say his job? He went
on. First of all,
I think it was Isaiah Hope or Hole, whatever his name is.
I think if you want to have any kind of credibility whatsoever in your job, maybe you don't say that, even if that is exactly what happened, because instantly you lose all credibility going forward. What do I know? I'm not a journo.
Well, one thing we did know, we knew this Matt Weiss stuff was going on. We just didn't know exact details. It was kind of a guessing game. You know what I mean? So at least now we knew, because someone put out, a Michigan fan put out last night. No one's shocked that this happened. So we knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know what type of cyber crimes he was doing. We just didn't know. So now we do know, right? And we don't know from a football side. What he did in this indictment is gross and disgusting. He's a gross pig. He's gross. It's just really disgusting and unfortunate that it happened to these girls.
I want to know there's particular, whether I'm assuming he didn't do this through like a Michigan, computer or something like that. He maybe did it on his own.
No, I think he'd used work computers.
So then my question would then be, there are typically security protocols in place both on Michigan's end and the computer systems being hacked that would have detected this far sooner. What took so long?
I don't know.
I think that's a fair question we should be asking too. Like, don't get me wrong, the federal indictment process and Department of Justice is a monolith, kind of like the NCAA, that sometimes moves incredibly slowly. But this should have been something that was uncovered the split second it occurred. Computer systems with I would imagine the type of security systems that any of these college institutions or these education institutions are going to have, and or any information that's going to be medical related to a particular patient or student is going to be heavily secure. And anytime something is accessing this information, it's tracked. What took so long for this to kind of come to the forefront? That's a question I think should be asked.
Do you think the NCAA that wrapped up the Connor Stallions investigation now, and it's kind of like, all right, we're in a wait and see mode? Do you think the NCAA even cares because it's the investigation's all wrapped up? We're waiting for Michigan to come back. I don't know. We're at some steps right now that I don't understand or even know about. Does the NCAA even care if Connor Stallions and Matt Weiss were working in cahoots, or do they do the Matt Weiss stuff and say, oh, by the way, he was in cahoots with another guy who was cheating? Because I would think, knowing what they know about Matt Weiss and then the Connor Stallions stuff, would you reopen the Connor Stallions investigation, or would you think, all right, neither guy's talking, so there's no need for us to go there because we're not going to get anywhere. Let's just settle this, and then we'll pick up the Matt Weiss stuff.
I think the NCAA has enough to absolutely bury the program as it is right now. I think that's why we're seeing the NCAA being as by the book and meticulous as they are, so that when they do absolutely drop all the information and their judgment on the Michigan football program, they can't come back and say that there was some kind of I that was not dotted or T was not crossed by Michigan and basically throw it all out. Kind of like we see particular court cases where guys are dead to rights, but there was some procedural issue that law enforcement or, the Miranda rights weren't read. The NCAA, in my opinion, is doing everything they can to absolutely dot every single I and cross every T right now. And I think they've got enough to absolutely bury the program. What I would say is this: is any type of arbitration or negotiation that would be taking place between the NCAA and Michigan right now to somehow make this, accept the punishment, own what they did, but make this whole case go away. The NCAA just got a hell of a lot more leverage in that.
Agree.
Right now going forward, so that if Michigan still wants to play hardball, the NCAA is just going to throw their hands up and say, dude, we've got you like this way, that way. We still haven't really opened this box over here on the Matt Weiss investigation. Like, okay, we'll play ball. We'll keep going down this road. But the only thing that's going to happen, it's like a plea deal, right? If somebody says, okay, we got you for murder, the counselor, the prosecution comes and says, hey, if you plead to this, we're going to give you 20 years. No, I want to go to trial. And next thing you know, you're in jail for life because you lose the case. So like, I think we're at that point where all of the leverage is currently sitting with the NCAA at this point.
I don't know if, from the Michigan standpoint, to be non-biased, if what they are doing this, we know nothing, we don't know anything, you're being unfair, you're picking on us, stop picking on us, we didn't do anything wrong, you're overblowing the situation. I think it's an all or nothing thing because they won a national championship and they want to hold on to that national championship. Now, I get that. They want to protect what they accomplished. Their probably feeling is, all right, there was stuff that was probably going on. We're not going to admit to what was going on, but let's just deny because we want to play this thing out for years like Tennessee did. We want to play this out another year from now to play this out, and let's push back. Maybe we get some more info. Maybe they get sick of this. Whatever happens, maybe time goes by, people forget about it, whatever. And let's just deny, and do the lawyer thing. And what are they ultimately going to do to us? They're playing that game right now. Now that this Matt Weiss thing or Weiss stuff comes out, then now it's a really different story because there's another investigation, I'm sure, right around the corner. We don't know. They're going to investigate, but we don't know if there's going to be charges in this investigation. Maybe they investigate and they don't find anything. But even if they were looking at injury reports, they're going to do a level 1 lack of institutional control. And then they're going to look at the prior two things, right? And say, damn, this program has, 2 major scandals back to back. And then now this one, the third. This program really didn't keep an eye on what's going on. I don't know if I'm Michigan, this is what I would do at this standpoint, Sam. I would do an internal investigation of what they really have, right? And I don't have to release it to anybody. I do it internally. And if I find out that he was looking up at practice, looking at injury reports, whatever it is, Santa Ono, you're fired. Crime boss, you're fired. Football staff, you're fired. And there's been schools, look at Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. They had to get rid of their coach. They had to get rid of their athletic director. I mean, Herm Edwards had to leave. their athletic director. They won 3 games. They got Kenny Dillingham. Arizona State football was an absolute laughingstock, and then Kenny Dillingham turned it around. You can turn around your program. If you're Penn State, you had basically the death penalty. You eventually turned it around. Lane Kiffin was semi-successful at USC. It's not just because you get hammered doesn't mean it's the end of your program. And I think Michigan feels that, if we get hammered, it's the absolute end of our program. No, it's not. You're just going to have to get rid of the bad seeds, the fat ass who's running your show, the idiot president who bet. You're an idiot. And then all the current staff. And you have to rid yourself, Sam, and cleanse yourself of the Jim Harbaugh era completely.
So I think there's a golden goose Michigan is doing everything they can to protect, and that's the national championship. They're doing everything they can to make sure that no matter what happens, whether if the punishment is agreed upon and they kind of plea it down, so to speak, or if they go the route of going in front of this violations board or committee and kind of leaving their fate in their hands, they're going to do everything they can to protect the national championship. The other thing, and I think this is not as important, but it's up there as well. They just had a pretty good recruiting class and got the highest rated quarterback recruit they've ever gotten, to my knowledge, in the history of the program. They're doing everything they can to make sure that they are not punished as enough in the future, whether that be opportunities of bowl bans, scholarship reductions, to make sure that they can keep those guys in the building. Because how do you hurt a program? You put these postseason bans on them and absolutely kneecap their ability to recruit and retain the talent that they currently have on the roster. And I'm telling you what, man, the longer this goes and the more that comes out, the more the NCAA is not only going to make them not necessarily forfeit the wins, but not recognize the wins, the Big Ten championships, any of those seasons, but they're going to lose their national championship. And I think they're going to get at least a 2-season bowl ban in which you're going to see all of these guys walk out the door.
If you were to guess right now, because I wrote back, when you said protecting that national championship, I actually wrote Bryce Underwood on my piece of paper here. Does Bryce Underwood spend all 4 years or 3 years at Michigan?
Not a chance. I would love to see what his contract was on the NIL deal.
Yeah.
My guess is he got a bunch of money up front as a precaution. Because guess what? If I was advising the kid to do so, I'd have said, listen, there's still these allegations out there. We don't really know. We can listen to what Michigan's telling us, but they've been wrong every step of the way. Let's get as much of this money guaranteed up front that if after a season the Michigan the cheating scandal hammer finally drops and we don't like what's happening here and the ability for this program to go out and try to win in the playoffs, we can walk and retain as much money as we can and go to another program. No, I think that you're right. I think the 2 golden gooses right now are the national championship and Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, I absolutely. And maybe Michigan comes back if they get the hammer and say, hey, man, what if we up you to $6 million a year? What if we do it to $7 million a year? They have rich pockets, so maybe they up it. He doesn't leave, but I can't imagine him staying.
Well, so look at the NIL though in this regard. So what is the return on NIL? All these guys giving money to programs is championships. If you don't have the ability to win a championship, I'm going to go out on a limb and say NIL is going to dry up very fast.
Yeah,
so
possibly
they're gonna neuter Michigan in some capacity. And we keep talking about how bad the football program is. Let's not discount the fact that the entire athletic department over there is having some serious issues right now.
Well, they did get a W last night.
Well, I mean, and by the way, thank God we got Jake Diebler, not Dusty May.
How about that, huh?
That's another topic for another day. What was the question you were going to ask me, by the way? Before the break.
Oh, I just asked you if they were going to deny or stall the investigation of Connor Stalions because they think they want to know if the two are linked. Like if Matt Weiss and Connor Stalions shared information. That was going to be. Again, I kind of alluded to it when I talked to you, but yeah, do you? Think
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the NCAA's got enough to link it anyway without the feds and evidence.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Back to what I was saying earlier about these high-tech security networks, like all these schools that he is alleged to have hacked can go in and see exactly when that took place without having any kind of federal warrant or their evidence. So they can go in and link and say, hey, we saw this guy's being accused of this by the feds. Let's go back through our systems to see who logged in and accessed what. Oh, this one doesn't look good. okay, we're just going to go ahead and assume it was him. They can link the IPs and say we've got all that information already, or all that evidence already.
Do you think Michigan will be forthcoming and give the NCAA any hard drive or evidence that they've already seized?
It depends on what the NCAA is putting on the table. If it protects the 2 golden gooses, I absolutely. If they have to say they have to entirely disown Jim Harbaugh and accept any kind of permanent ban from college football, if they have to serve him up on a silver platter, they will absolutely do so to protect the golden gooses.
See, I don't think they will. I think Michigan has fought hard, kicking and screaming during this entire time. And I think if the NCAA requests records, I don't think Michigan's going to comply. I think Michigan has played hardball during this entire time, and they're going to continue to.
I think it depends on what's on the table. If the NCAA is coming to Michigan and saying we want XYZ, and if you provide that, we'll take the acknowledging your.
But they've already refused in the Connor Stallions. Michigan said we're not going to negotiate because we're innocent. They already refused in the Connor Stallions.
When the NCAA comes in and throws the stacks of evidence on the table, Michigan's mindset and approach could potentially change. They've said it all along the way. But last week it was reported was the first time they went to, try to come to some agreement to end this whole charade. And it was the first time that they said, okay, we'll do X, Y, Z, and we'll acknowledge something bad happened. That was the first time during this entire process that had taken place. So they're not the guy sticking the chest out anymore. It doesn't sound like.
Yeah, it's weird how they've handled it. Is I would have fell on the sword, take my punishment, moved on, and knew, kind of like the Buckeye Final Four in basketball, where you knew that, all right, we can't have our banner in the rafters, but we know that the Buckeyes went to the Final Four. I would think it would be similar for Michigan football. It's like, all right, we take that away, but we know who the best team was. We knew we won a championship. We knew for those 6 games that we went through the gauntlet of Ohio State, Alabama, and Washington. And we know we're the real, all right, we might not have it, but we know who won the game, right? I would take that attitude. They won't know.
I mean, I also think I think they also maybe misread the room this entire time too, to where they're thinking that nothing can happen. There's nothing the NCAA can do to us to take our national championship. The actual acknowledgement in the annals of history. And I think they now understand there's enough that they can do if they make a lot of this evidence public to put pressure on the Big Ten to not acknowledge the championships. And then you go to the CFP and say, well, hey, if these games never took place, how are you going to award a national championship to a 6-win team?
Yeah.
Or, however many wins it was. So I think they've entirely misread the situation and misread the room this entire time.
Hey, Buckeye fans, by the way, subscribe, like, follow, share, hit that thumbs up button. Appreciate you. Remember the website, the OVEpodcast.com, giving some great giveaways. Josh Simmons autograph framed jersey, Urban Meyer autograph football helmet. Got some good stuff for you. So follow along on the website. Appreciate you. How was your bracket, Sam?
So again, I don't fill one out, but I was going to go there. How was your lock pick yesterday? Because mine won by 10.
No, it's today. Exactly.
Okay. Drake beat Mizzou by 10 yesterday. I said, take the 2.5 and run. They're going to win outright.
Absolutely. Love it. All right. We done for the day?
Sure.
Have a good weekend. We back Monday?
We're back Monday. I'm out Thursday.
I'm out Thursday too.
Well,
so
are you going
Monday,
to opening day as well?
No. Monday show, Wednesday wrestling, Thursday off, Friday show. That kind of works for me.
I could probably do the Friday show.
Beautiful. That's what we're doing next week. By the way, do we hold an official funeral for the Blue Jackets season yet? They can't score. 4 of the last 7 they've been shut out.
They've had 8 games since the outdoor game and have scored 9 goals.
That's pathetic, dude. How bad? You were there last night. How bad was it?
It was gut-wrenching. It was, and I told my buddy I was with, I said, when they took that penalty was assessed, which chicken shit. I said they're going to lose in overtime because this is going to carry over. So we're not the best 3-on-3 to begin with. You put this talent at 4-on-3, it's cooked. And sure enough, 23 seconds in.
Yeah, it happened.
But
anything good about the game? Defense good?
Effort was great. Elvis was back after the birth of his second child, played very well. Team seemed to play well. Couple of posts, couple of breakaways. They can't score, man. And
how's Chidikoff?
Chidikoff was better last night.
Was he?
He was better. He's still got some things we're working on.
All right, let's get drunk and get laid, everybody, this weekend. All right? Hey, Matt Weiss, I hope you're in jail and you get laid this weekend. All right, we're back. We're back Monday. See ya.
See you guys.
Hey, it's Torg for Custom Air. You know, when it comes to my HVAC system, I don't trust just anyone. I trust Custom Air. These guys are fast, reliable, and they know their stuff. Fall's just around the corner, and now's the perfect time to make sure your HVAC equipment is running at its best. Don't wait until it's too late. Get ahead of the game. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my home, and neither should you. Visit them on the web at customairco.com and keep your home comfortable all season long. Custom solutions, custom comfort, Custom Air. Thinking of buying or selling a home? Give Lauren Torgerson a call with NextHome Experience. Lauren has been servicing the Columbus metropolitan area for 10 years. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, considering building, want to upsize or downsize, Lauren can help you with all your real estate needs. Get a free market analysis for your area and get started working on making tomorrow's dreams happen today. Call or text Lauren at 614-296-3952, 614-296-3952, or email at togersonlauren@gmail.com.